Hi, Assalamu alaikum. This is Leslie once again, or Abdul Karim Abdullah if you prefer my Muslim name. The purpose of this video, and I will try to keep it under 10 minutes maximum. The purpose of the video is to basically introduce one of my recent books to the viewers. The book is on the subject of economics from the Islamic perspective, and the book is called Reigning in the Banksters of Wall Street. Now, that sounds like a sort of a fighting type of title, and it is intended to be that. However, I should probably give credit to another fellow who actually, where I got the idea to use the term banksters in the title of my own book. I forget the fellow's name, but there's a fellow who wrote a book that was called just The Banksters, and it was about some of the abuses that happened in the financial sector in the aftermath and during the financial crisis that began, I think, in 2007. So now I have written this book partly as a follow-up to a bigger book that I already have out there on Amazon. That book is called Islamic and Conventional Economics, What Are the Differences? And the book is basically a comparison of the two systems, and that particular book consists of a number of essays I have written when I was a research fellow at the International Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies, working with Professor Mohammed Hashim Kamali, who was our chairman. I think he's still there and active as a chief executive officer. So now, I remember one time he asked me, the first time he asked me to write about economics was when he assigned me the task of finding out why the sukuk were defaulting. Sukuk are Islamic certificates of investment similar to common shares, and so I went into the project with a background in conventional economics, which was a subject that I probably taught more than any other of about a dozen subjects that I have taught in my life in various institutions, including a number of matriculation colleges as well as a university here in Malaysia. But the purpose of the book is basically to introduce this book to the problems in modern day banking, because you may be aware that the opinion is divided chiefly on the question of whether modern interest is the riba that is condemned in the Quran or not. Now, I side with the traditional scholars who basically have, I think, issued a fatwa. The OIC Fiqh Academy, Organization of Islamic Conference Fiqh Academy, issued a fatwa saying basically that yes, modern day interest is riba and therefore it is forbidden. And I'm inclined to share that view as well, based on the 10 years of teaching conventional economics as well as the research that I have done in the area. I have a paper also on the differences between riba or interest and profit. That one is available in a public domain, and I recall that when I was still at the institute, the research institute, it was the, I think, single most downloaded item on our website, downloaded, not read, and I think the total number of downloads that it acquired when I left was about 16,000. So it is a popular topic. So I thought it would be useful to return to it and emphasize this notion that modern day interest, after all, is riba, and that it is causing tremendous damage, I think, to the economy in at least half a dozen different ways. Now, I know that I'm going against perhaps the prevailing opinion among Muslim financial engineers is that riba, as long as it is not, interest, as long as it is not excessive, is acceptable. To that I answer by saying that, well, it's like saying that a little bit of cancer or a little bit of COVID is acceptable. I don't think any of it is acceptable, and it should be completely banned, and it can be done contrary to the perceptions of some commentators, who include well-known people like Fazlur Rahman, who has a whole essay on the subject, and also Brother Abdul Rab, who is a well-known Quran-centric Muslim scholar, a Harvard graduate who has also written on the subject of riba, and if I recall correctly, his article on academia has had 10,000 views, which is quite high, and so it seems that he reached quite a large number of people with his article. So I would like to suggest that actually both Dr. Fazlur Rahman, may Allah bless his soul, and also Dr. Rab, both got it wrong, I'm sorry to say, because my own research indicates that there is a very, very dramatic difference between interest and profit as incentives to drive economic activity. First of all, interest, the amount of interest is always calculated in advance. It is known in advance, while profit or dividends are never known in advance. Secondly, there's a direct relationship between the performance of a business and the profits that it earns that are paid to the shareholders. This link does not exist in bank lending or loan financing because the borrower of the money is obliged to pay predetermined amounts of interest regardless of how well the business that he is running is performing. So there's no link between efficiency or performance on the one hand and reward to the capital provider. This actually contradicts a basic principle of capitalism, which is that the reward should be proportional to effort. It reminds me of communism, in fact, where I grew up in Czechoslovakia under the communist system, where all workers were paid a wage regardless of pretty much the same, in the same categories, regardless of the productivity, their productivity. So this is also happening, in the modern economy, where bankers are basically obtaining predetermined rewards regardless of how well the business that they finance is performing. Now in Germany, they have the banks have a custom of investing or buying the shares of some of the companies that they lend money to, and I think that is a step in the right direction, although they could go all the way and finance the companies this way almost completely. And this brings me to a point I wanted to make about the analysis of both Dr. Fazlur Rahman and Dr. Abdul Rab, because when you look at the articles carefully, you will realize, as I have written in this book, that they write as if share markets simply did not exist in the modern economy. That is simply not the case. So it is entirely wrong to say that the modern economy could not function without a banking system. It could not only function, but it would function much, much better than it functions now. Because for a start, and I want to keep this, like I said, under 10 minutes, so I will keep it short, but the readers can find the details in the book or in some of my papers, which are available free online on the academic website, Academia, under my legal name, Leslie Cherebesi, and under my Muslim name, Abdul Karim Abdullah, on ResearchGate. So the main damage resulting from financing using bank loans is that the disequilibrium which we find in a money market, and which is there by structural necessity, because if there are no two prices for money, the banks would never earn any quote-unquote profit. So this instability, which is artificially embedded in the banking system, spreads gradually to all the markets which are related to it. That means the resource markets, capital markets, labor markets, and the product markets, and even the foreign exchange markets. So this is causing huge damage. In fact, in my longer book, I traced all the major economic problems, including unemployment, inflation, cyclical instability, rising gap between the rich and poor, inefficiency, and long-term decline in productivity. I traced all of these problems to the use of interest as an incentive to drive economic activity. So I think that's perhaps all I will have to say on the subject for the time being. Perhaps I could do a longer video at some point explaining some of these concepts in a little more detail, but like I said, this particular clip, I wanted to keep it short, under 10 minutes, and so I think I will wrap it up at this point. But if you have any comments or observations, please put them in the comments below. Thank you very much, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.